The Chicago Bears organization is staring down a decision that could completely reshape the trajectory of this franchise for the next 5 years. And the tension that exploded on national television 2 weeks ago was just the visible tip of a much deeper iceberg. Welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your most trusted source for exclusive analysis, breaking developments, and the honest conversations that Bears Nation deserves. I'm bringing you the latest updates, strategic insights, and the kind of in-depth coverage that goes beyond surface-level reporting. Today, I need to walk you through a situation that's been developing behind closed doors at Halas Hall, one that involves difficult decisions about cornerstone players, millions of dollars in salary cap implications, and a philosophical shift in how this offense is being built. Before I reveal exactly whose future hangs in the balance and what the organization is seriously considering, I need you to understand the context of what happened in that Packers game, because that moment on the sideline wasn't just about one play or one interception. It was the culmination of frustration that's been building throughout this entire season, and it's forcing management to ask themselves some incredibly tough questions about roster construction moving forward. Let me paint the picture for you because everyone saw the moment, but not everyone understood what it really meant. 4th and 1, red zone, final seconds of the game, season hanging in the balance. Caleb Williams drops back looking for a game-winning touchdown and instead throws an interception into the end zone. The camera immediately cuts to the sideline, and there he is. Helmet off, disgust written all over his face, body language screaming frustration. DJ Moore looked like a player who'd reached his breaking point, and Bears fans watching at home felt that same pit in their stomach, wondering what this meant for the future. The immediate assumption from everyone watching was that Moore believed he was open and that Williams missed him on that critical play. In his mind, he'd done his job getting separation, and the ball simply didn't come his way when it mattered most. That interpretation would make sense given how the entire game had gone for Moore. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn that a lot of people missed. Ben Johnson addressed this specific moment on Monday and completely changed the narrative about what actually happened on that play. Johnson made it crystal clear that Moore wasn't the answer on that final offensive snap. The head coach stated directly that Moore came open more after the ball had already been released from Williams, which means the timing wasn't there and the frustration Moore displayed was misplaced from a tactical standpoint. But that explanation, while technically accurate, doesn't address the bigger issue that's been festering all season long. Moore's unhappiness goes way deeper than one play or one game. The statistics from that Packers contest tell a story that's almost hard to believe when you're talking about a player of Moore's caliber. 1 reception for -4 yards. Let me say that again because it's genuinely shocking. 1 catch for -4 yards against a division rival in a game the Bears desperately needed to win. Williams completed 19 of 35 passes for 186 yards with 2 touchdowns and that crucial interception. But somehow the team's number 1 receiver was completely invisible in the game plan. Johnson himself admitted to being surprised when he looked at the stat sheet after the game. He said they'd planned to feature Moore more than any other player in the offense going into the contest, especially with Rome Odunze missing due to injury. The head coach thought Moore ran good routes throughout the day, but they simply couldn't get him the ball. That disconnect between intention and execution is creating a rift that could have serious long-term consequences. What Bears Nation needs to understand is that this isn't an isolated incident or a one-game anomaly. Moore is on pace for career lows in both receptions and receiving yards this season, which is stunning considering he's supposed to be the focal point of this passing attack. His frustration has been visible for weeks, bubbling under the surface and occasionally breaking through in moments like we saw against Green Bay. The question the organization is now wrestling with is whether this situation is salvageable or if it's time to make a dramatic change. Here's where the financial and strategic analysis becomes absolutely critical. Moore's current contract runs through this season, but he starts a 4-year extension worth $110 million in 2026. That's an enormous financial commitment to a player who appears increasingly uncomfortable in this offensive system. The Bears could trade Moore this offseason and save $24.5 million against the cap in each of the next 4 years. They'd take $4 million dead cap hits in the next 3 seasons, which is manageable compared to the savings they'd generate. Think about what $24.5 million in annual cap savings could do for this roster. That's elite pass rusher money. That's franchise left tackle money. That's the kind of financial flexibility that allows you to address multiple roster needs instead of having all that money tied up in one player who isn't fitting the offensive philosophy. Bill Barnwell from ESPN predicted a potential Moore trade ahead of the November deadline. And while that didn't materialize, the logic behind that prediction becomes more sound with each passing week. The root cause of this disconnect is Ben Johnson's offensive philosophy, which emphasizes 12 personnel sets with 2 tight ends and a heavy commitment to running the football. This isn't a pass-heavy system designed to maximize wide receiver production. It's a physical, ground-and-pound approach that uses a 2-headed running back attack to control games. Moore is an elite route runner and separator who thrives in systems that take advantage of his skills in space. That's not what Johnson is running in Chicago, and the mismatch is becoming increasingly obvious. What makes this situation even more complex is the emergence of Rome Odunze in his second season. The young receiver has shown legitimate WR1 potential, which means the Bears might not actually need Moore to be the centerpiece of their passing attack moving forward. If Odunze can develop into that true number 1 option and the offense continues leaning heavily on the run game and tight ends, Moore's role becomes redundant at his current price point. That's not a criticism of Moore's talent. It's just acknowledging that fit matters enormously in modern NFL roster construction. Now here's the part that's going to surprise a lot of Bears fans, and this is where the speculation gets really interesting. While everyone's been focused on the Moore situation, there's a quieter conversation happening about whether Caleb Williams is actually the long-term answer at quarterback in this system. I'm not saying the Bears are actively shopping Williams or that they've given up on their first overall pick, but Johnson's offense doesn't necessarily require an elite pocket passer with a big arm. It requires a game manager who can execute play action, make smart decisions, and not turn the ball over. That's a very different skill set than what Williams was supposed to bring to this franchise. The interception in the end zone against Green Bay showed Williams trying to make a hero throw when taking the easy check down or throwing the ball away would have been the smarter play. That decision-making has been inconsistent all season, and while some of that is expected from a rookie, it raises questions about whether Williams is actually the right fit for what Johnson wants to do offensively. The chemistry between Williams and Moore clearly isn't where it needs to be, and that's creating cascading problems throughout the entire offensive operation. I want to be very clear about something before we go any further. I'm not advocating for the Bears to trade both Moore and Williams. That would be organizational malpractice and would set this franchise back years. But I am saying that the organization needs to make a definitive choice about which direction they're going. Either you commit fully to Williams as your franchise quarterback and build an offense around his strengths, which means potentially moving on from Johnson's system, or you commit fully to Johnson's vision and find players who fit that philosophy perfectly, which might mean moving on from both Moore and eventually Williams if he can't adapt. The offseason moves available to the Bears if they trade Moore are genuinely exciting from a roster construction standpoint. They could dramatically upgrade the offensive line, giving whoever plays quarterback much better protection. They could add elite talent on the defensive side of the ball, particularly at pass rusher where they desperately need help. They could invest in the running back room to better execute Johnson's ground-heavy approach. All of those improvements would make the Bears a more complete team, even while losing a talented receiver. Rome Odunze's development is the key variable that makes a Moore trade possible rather than organizational suicide. If Odunze can become that true WR1, if he can command double teams and make plays down the field consistently, then Moore's departure becomes addition by subtraction financially. The Bears would be betting on their young receiver taking the next step while freeing up massive cap space to address other needs. That's a calculated risk, but it's one that makes strategic sense given how this season has unfolded. My analysis of this entire situation is that the Bears are at a genuine crossroads with no easy answers. The tension between Moore and Williams isn't going away on its own. The philosophical mismatch between Moore's skill set and Johnson's offensive system isn't going to magically resolve itself. Something has to give, and that something is probably going to be DJ Moore's tenure in Chicago. I think the organization will seriously explore trading him this offseason, and I think they'll find interested teams willing to give up valuable assets for a receiver of his caliber, even with the large contract attached. As for Williams, I'm more optimistic about his long-term future with the Bears despite the struggles. Rookie seasons are supposed to be rough, and the lack of chemistry with Moore might actually improve once there's a receiver in that WR1 spot who's fully bought into Johnson's system. The key for Williams is showing growth in decision-making and continuing to develop chemistry with Odunze and the tight ends who will be featured heavily in this offense moving forward. I need to hear from you in the comments below. Do you think the Bears should trade DJ Moore this offseason to free up cap space and address other roster needs? Can the Williams-Moore relationship be salvaged, or is it too damaged to fix? Should the organization prioritize keeping Moore and potentially changing the offensive system, or is committing to Johnson's philosophy more important? Are you confident that Rome Odunze can develop into a true number one receiver? Let me know your thoughts, because Bears Nation needs to have these difficult conversations, honestly. If you want to stay on top of every development this offseason, if you want analysis that goes beyond the headlines and really digs into the strategic implications of these decisions, make sure you're subscribed to Bears News Fan Report. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates as this situation develops. We're going to be tracking every rumor, every report, and every move the Bears make as they navigate this critical offseason. The future of this franchise is being decided right now, and I'll be here breaking it all down for you. Bears, down!